Richardson, civil rights attorney at McCune Law Group, getting into it once again, breaking it down, the law and common sense.
Let's bring in our guest who is standing by. We have trial attorney Joe Richardson here to talk about this latest development in the Diddy case. I don't know what I expected from a note, Joe, but I did not expect that there was an accusation from one juror against another this early in the process.
Yeah, it really is kind of interesting, and it's there's some fireworks there, and it is interesting when you consider, what was said during jury selection, right? It's kind of like almost one of these "I told you so" type of things. Maybe we had grounds to worry here, so we'll see what happens. I mean, of course, the judge is going to really try to work through it. Nothing's going to blow up right away, but it is of course concerning to be 2 hours in and to have enough of some kind of opinion or something stated where they're already sending a note back out saying one of these guys is not going to go along as it pertains to doing what needs to be done to follow instructions.
Let's talk about the racketeering charge that's against Sean Diddy Combs. It is complicated to look at what the verdict form is in terms of what these jurors have to go through, because they have to look at what's proven and not proven, but that's not the actual charge. They have to see if there's at least one of these incidents that happened that he is guilty of or that the prosecution proved, and then to see if there were two of those incidents. How do you make sure, if you're the jurors, that you're going through this in a careful way? Because the prosecution, they want a magnifying glass on this case. They want them to zoom in on each and every one of these. And even if it happened just one time, two different of these allegations, these violations, then that gets you to racketeering, which carries a sentence of up to life.
Yeah, and I still think racketeering is the hardest to show because, elements you have to show is that there's some kind of agreement, that there's this criminal thing that's going on. And is it clear that there is a criminal thing going on? Now, there's some underlying things that really don't look good, for sure, when you're looking at those predicate crimes. But there's an argument that the predicate crimes weren't picked apart and proven the same way they would have been if they were charged for those crimes directly. Right. So clearly there's something going on that shouldn't be going on. But is this a domestic abuser with a lot of baby oil, with a whole bunch of things are going around? Or is this actually a RICO violation, which basically is what you accuse people that are involved in criminal enterprises from doing? And even though there's some things that went on, first of all, you got to believe the credibility of the witnesses that testified to it. The person that is, I think, probably the biggest key is KK, who did not testify. I think that works against the prosecution. So are there things there? Absolutely. But you've got to pull things from different directions. And ultimately, you have to believe in the credibility of the witnesses in order to get there. And it's an open question as to whether or not this jury actually will.
And you make a great point, Joe, where you say those violations that are under the racketeering charge, that outside, it's almost like an actual umbrella. Once they're under the umbrella, then they're protected. But once they're outside of it, they get wet, they get soggy. The bribery charge, it only survives under racketeering because charged on its own, the statute of limitations in California has expired, things of that nature. So it's interesting that they're using it in this way. We understand that even if Sean Combs is acquitted, he will still not walk out of the courthouse. He'll have to go back to the detention center and then be processed that way. How do you prep a client for the guilty, the not guilty, the hung jury, whatever happens in a case like this? Because this is the moment. Everything hangs in the balance right now.
Well, I would imagine that P. Diddy Combs is a guy with a lot of money, a lot of resources, and so he's going to want some sense of predictability of the process as much as possible, right? So you talk him through it the best way possible so that he knows, okay, if this doesn't go well, here's our fallback. Here's what we would do here. Here's what we would do here. Here's what we do here. You kind of got to handle him with kid gloves, I think, a little bit, because he's going to be somebody that's more demanding. He's paying a team of attorneys. He is not short on resources, at least as pertains to doing what he needs to do here. So I think you go through a little bit of a different window, even as the attorney, making sure that he's a satisfied client, that he's getting what he needs, but that he can make very good decisions and clear decisions about where things go, following their advice, of course, so that every scenario that could be dealt with is dealt with when it comes up.
Absolutely. 2 hours and 35 minutes this jury has had the case. They've already sent out a note saying that one of the jurors isn't participating properly. We will see what happens there. Joe, stand by. When we come back from this quick break, we're going to switch gears and go to Connecticut for more testimony in the trial that we've been watching together, where there are cameras. Defendant Raul Valley. Stay tuned. You're watching Court TV.